Hey, what's up, YouTube? So today I wanted to do a tier list for the most common skills used for an ore stacker. In order to figure out what the most common skills used for an ore stacker, we're gonna go into the builds, ascendant. Now we're gonna type in Nebulis, and yeah, and pretty much anyone using a Nebulis as an ascendant is probably playing an ore stacker, right? So let's look at the breakdown. Wow, that is an insane amount of people still playing Spark. They have lost their minds. So 58% Spark, 23% Anomalous Spark, meaning they're probably using rare boots. 19% Penance Brand, so this is for all the people who watch the guide, I'm assuming. 12% EK, so these are the poor people or people who just like the look of EK. And 5% Arc, and these must be the really poor people. Damn. Does this guy count? How does he have 59 million Arc? This guy's not poor. This guy is actually very, very rich. What in the world? This is actually such a high number for Arc. It's kind of unbelievable. Is this actually the number one guy for Arc? Anyhow, I'm going to go over this guy's gear real fast because I just found it. And I still want to do a gear overview before I go into the tier list. So it should be pretty fun to see how this guy has 59 million. Because 59 million is absurd, right? Like if you go, let's go to builds here. If you go and look at Arc, he might be the number one Arcer in the world. And it might not even be that close. Oh wait, nah. 157 million. Yeah, but these people are... Why are these people's damage so high? Oh, it's these mana builds. Ew. But yeah, I made a tier list for all these abilities, so I'm going to break it down into clear, bossing, and budget. So yeah. And here we have our character. I did a little bit more 5-way carry, so this character, I didn't really change anything. I did fill out this last medium cluster. This thing actually costs a fortune. Precise command of pressure points. 6 exalts. But yeah, this character is chugging along, and I did find one expensive unique. The people ask me, oh, what do you do with all your unique jewels? Well, they just rot here until I try to look for it. So maybe one day I type in 7556, something might get highlighted, but that sounds like a pipe dream, right? But I also have like one of these tabs. So this is another one. If you're actually doing 5-way carries that you look out for, area damage and LE damage is worth a lot. So you see these two, you check them, and well, bam, 8 exalts. Maybe not 8, but 7 to 8 exalts, right? Maybe 6. So you can definitely hit a jackpot on one of these. My gems also finally hit level 5 from leveling them. Awaken Fork is now 5, so this is like what? So I bought it for, that's like a 1x profit. And all these other ones are almost 5. Oh wait, I just need to put on an amulet. So if you can't like actually level up your gems, so you see how like it's kind of like unable to be leveled up. So you put on the amulet here, and then click it on, and then take it off. And Atramentus is perfect for that since it has all the stats you'll ever need. But anyhow, let's get into the gear overview of this guy with the arc skill just to analyze why exactly his damage is so high. So for the gear overview, the first thing that stands out is like arc is usually a pretty budget skill, but maybe this guy likes arc or something. I don't know if he watches my videos at all. But 2 Nebuluses is the most damage possible along with the Shavs, right? Because Nebulus is just insane damage. If you look at Nebulus by itself, the implicit is 10% more damage if you have 2 of the double damage Nebuluses, and it also is another 600% elemental damage along with 20% cold damage on top. So this guy actually has, is this actually linked to Unleash? No. See, this will be a pretty interesting BV thing. Skills supported by Unleash have +1 to maximum number of seals, so he has a pretty good helmet. Nearby enemies take 9% increased elemental damage mixed with 7% reservation. So this is actually one of my beliefs, is that arm mixed with multi is worse than nearby enemies take 9% increased LE. So if you wanted to make the best damage helmet for most builds, it'd be 7% RMR, Awakened Orb with nearby enemies take 9% increased. I think it actually goes higher to like 12%, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is double elevated already. So he basically got those two together, and then he put on Aspect of Avian, and then I think he probably just... So after you get the suffixes done and you craft on Aspect of the Avian, you then go craft on suffixes cannot be changed, and then use a Veiled Chaos Orb to get +2 AoE gems, and if you don't hit it, you just go again. And then you probably Aug Influence to try to get something good. It's a pretty good chance to get something useful, and then you craft on flat ES. It's a pretty simple craft overall, but this helmet is pretty good. He's not able to use the actual exposure. So in reality, he's probably better off using Hubris Circlet for more ES. A lot of people use the Archdemon Crown and then find out they actually can't really do anything because they have to put the purities in the helms because of the +2. So they end up in a bit of a bind. So you have to kind of like plan out your character because using a Hubris is just going to always be better unless you're actually gaining exposure, right? So his amulet is pretty good. This is actually a pretty good defensive amulet since you're playing Arc, you don't need to worry about prod speed. So this is pretty much max defense. I don't really know how he made it, but he made it because that's actually pretty insane. 59% multi. So that's part of the reason why his damage is so high. And then he has somehow like I think it's probably T2 ES and then T2%. So then he has 2 Call of the Brotherhoods, which are just insane because they have Hatred effect and Zealotry Aura effect. And this one has Wrath skill and Zealotry Aura effect. I meant this one has Hatred skill. So he has 2 like near perfect Call of the Brotherhoods. And then he has +2 duration, +2 prod. So this guy seems like he was probably playing Spark to begin with and just swapped to Arc. He's probably kind of like me, just trying out different skills. His Arcane Surge, 21-23, Awaken Spell Echo. So he has a lot of level 6 Awaken gems too. That's part of the reason why his damage is so high, and a Divergent Inspiration for more. Is that crit? No, it's actually mana cost, surprisingly enough. Or I'm not sure what it is actually. But he has a Headhunter with a Zealotry Aura effect, and then his Zealotry is actually in the Hands of the High Templar. And this is actually kind of strange what he has going on, right? Because why does he have the Phantasmal Smite in the Nebulis? See, this is just like something that is probably wrong. I don't really know why he's doing this. I think he might be doing it because he has to run all the auras, right? So he can't put Arrogance in here, but I don't know. There has to probably be a better solution. Maybe put the Clarity somewhere else and move the Clarity, the Smite into here. Yeah, see, that's the problem without using without using Prism Guardian is that you need another Arrogance link. So losing the Prism Guardian, you lose the 23 aura of the Grace, and you lose the Gem Socket for Arrogance. So you pretty much are guaranteed to need 2 Call of the Brotherhoods with an aura implicit. So he has Vaal Discipline, Clarity, Zealotry, Arrogance link. So he could have moved it into the boots here and then empowered the Discipline and empower the Smite, and that'd probably be a better solution, I think, and then have Righteous Fire. And that would probably be more damage overall. It's probably not the biggest deal in the world because he doesn't have a +6 since he has LE Weakness Spell Crit, but it would be interesting to see if he would gain more damage from that. But his flasks are pretty customary. These are... Wait, what the heck? Okay, see, this is like stuff that you don't want to be doing. Like, you have this much money, right? You shouldn't be having, like, 10 quality Aziri's Promise. You shouldn't be... I mean, this is 26. You shouldn't... Your Sinner's Wall should be quality, right? You could spend some money on Glassblower Baubles. Augments are really not that expensive, and neither are Baubles. And, yeah, try to get 30%, or you don't really need 2 Adrenalines. I don't know what's going on here. Maybe just testing a build out and just didn't care. But I'm just trying to showcase like people's builds just because I don't have my aura stacker anymore. So this is like kind of a free pop review for everyone. So this guy's damage is pretty high because he has 1 Voices and 3 Large Clusters. Large Clusters is extremely good on PoE Ninja because it gets all of its points taken. So if I import this guy into Path of Building, I guarantee you he probably has like 180 points or something like that. But he has Snowstorm and Vengeful Commander, Snowstorm, Vengeful Commander. So this is like the jewels that everyone uses. So this guy, since he doesn't have a Prism Guardian, he probably needs a lot of RMR. So it'd be fun to see how many RMR clusters he has. So he has 1 already from here. So 1 here, 1 here. So like you can see that his Purposeful Harbingers are not RMR because they're probably a lot harder to get. So he pretty much has an RMR on first amount replenishing on every single one except 1 Corrupted Blood one. So that's how he's able to run 2 Nebulises. So this could be like an end game setup for you. if you want to like fully invest, because he could be playing like Spark too, right? Or maybe he couldn't be. But this guy is kind of cheating because he has divergent skitter bots, but we'll get to that later. So he has I'm pretty sure all of these ones will be reduced reservation of skills, right? That's a pretty good Watcher's Eye, Hatred, and Cold. So he's choosing to have one multi and ES. Now this is just so this is what I'm talking about, like damage choice, like versus like if you want more ES or you want more damage. So this person's not going the full damage route, which is kind of interesting because could just be wearing a shield, but this one is actually an insane jewel. 7% ES and 28% multi, 27% multi. So most of his jewels are 1% ES and then one multi, and some are insane. So he has one insane jewel out of the bunch, and then he's using one try multi 1% ES. So this is what I'm talking about, like how sometimes it's actually cheaper to get a RMR cluster than to try to get an RMR jewel, a Cobalt jewel with so if you try to get this one to be RMR, it'll be pretty much impossible, right? So it's much more easy to get an RMR first of all replenishing. So he has 4400 ES. That's like pretty good. So like the reason why he's able to get so much ES without empowering the discipline is because he has a lot of these jewels. But he was going to spend so much time on trying to get percent ES, he would be much better spent in empowering the discipline in the hands of the High Templar. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, let's see if he's actually doing any gimmicky stuff. So he has Divergent Period of Ice for the extra pen. Divergent Skitter Bots is probably not really good. And I'm not really sure how having multiple aspects gets calculated in POB. But overall, his gear is not really that gimmicky. He has only Divergent Skitter Bots. It's not really, I don't really think people use Divergent Skitter Bots that often. You're probably better off using Dread Banner in most cases. But pretty impressive gear. Kind of questionable setup somewhere. But 59 million is always nice to see. I think I only reached ever like 20 million on POB. It's actually a pretty crazy number. But this is how you really like deck out your character for damage. And he actually did balance it out a little bit for ES. So he's not a complete glass cannon, even with 2 Nebulises. So the setup is probably pretty nice to play with. But anyhow, let's get into the tier list, and so people can see what I think is the best overall skill. Okay, so I actually was doing this. So this is my second take at it because I actually forgot to put Spark in, right? So I was making the tier list, and then I was like going through the skills, and I was like, huh, there's something missing, and it turns out it's Spark. So Spark is number 1, Penance Brand 2's EK 3, Arc 4, then Winter Orb 5, and then I don't even know, Blade Vortex. Some people do play Blade Vortex, so is this guy. There's one Blade Vortex user, but right now we're going to go into the clear, because that's pretty much what everyone cares about, right? How the skill actually clears in maps. Bosses are like whatever. Most bosses, even with, like, if you play Aura Stacker, your gear investment is usually high enough that you'll kill the bosses. But so we're going to do clear, bossing, and then budget, because those are the main things that people care about. So I'm going to go through it and place each one of these skills in their respective categories. So first we have, let's actually do this one first. Blade Vortex. So Blade Vortex, I feel, is probably one of the better clear skills. Like most people use it for, I mean, it was pretty much one of the most played skills last league, but it was mainly a self-curse. Now with this variant of the Aura Stacker, if you stack area, I believe that Blade Vortex should be A tier. It is really, really fast to clear the map, because like the main thing about clearing maps is you want to cast as few spells as possible. So Blade Vortex, you can just set it to unleash, cast a few stacks, then run through the map as fast as possible, right? So that's why it's in A tier. Like it clears map probably faster than most of these other skills, but there is one skill that beats it, and it is Winter Orb, and it is in S tier. So a lot of people ask me that what I think about Winter Orb, and Winter Orb is by far the best clear skill possible. Like every one of these other skills you have to like stop and cast, and there's one of them that's a kind of an exception, but I'll get to it later. So Winter Orb is like Blade Vortex, except you just run around the map and it shoots out Blade Vortexes around you. That's the best way to think about it. So instead of having to run up to the mob that's missing or in the corner, your Winter Orb will most likely just reach it. And if you have Explode Gloves, Winter Orb Chain is pretty crazy as you scale AoE on Winter Orb. Since you scale AoE, that makes your explosions bigger, your Herald explosions bigger, and the whole chain a lot better. So Winter Orb out of all the out of all the aura stacker skills is the best clear for mapping, I believe. And if you like ran an atoll over and over again, Winter Orb will win out probably like 90% of the time. And next, I would have to say is Arc. Now, Arc is, I don't know, should I put it in F tier or C tier? It's probably one of these. Like, Arc is pretty bad, right? Arc is not, is target capped, which is really, really bad. So Arc can only chain a number of times, like 9 times. So if you have too many mobs in an area, Arc just can't kill it all. Although Arc does have the added benefit that it has Vol Arc, which is insane for doing legions. And Vol Arc is up a lot of the times because there's been a buff to Vol Arc, the cooldown duration. But compared to these two skills, Arc you have to cast a lot. It's just not a pleasant experience, and it's also like kind of target capped, so it's also bad in that respect. So I would probably put Arc in like C tier. It doesn't really get scaled anyway. You can't use projectile speed. You can't use area. What you see is what you get. Is just Arc, right? So I put it there. Now, EK, I will probably actually I'm gonna move Arc down to F tier because I don't really like it. I really believe that compared to other skills, it's a lot worse. Maybe it's, is there a tier in between? Yeah, I mean, I could just put it here, right? I could put multiple skills in C tier or B tier. Because I was looking at EK. EK is another skill that's pretty good clear, but it's still, you have to cast a spell a lot. So I will probably put it like right here, above Arc. It's not really that target cap. It's skills based on Pierce, or you can use Fork to make it a lot better. But again, it's a spell that you have to cast constantly in mapping, and you can't just run through the map and not really worry about anything. So I put it here. Now the difference between Arc and EK is that EK has like a slightly longer range if you scale the projectile speed a lot, but it doesn't have the auto targeting of Arc. So their trade-off makes it pretty equivalent in my eyes. I haven't really mapped that much of EK. I do like to say that EK is probably a lot better if you have Headhunter buffs, because it actually scales really well with Headhunter, because you get more projectiles and it also scales with the Fizz buffs from Headhunter. But I'll probably put it in C tier because I don't think it's really comparable to Winter Orb or Blade Vortex even. But this is just for running through the map as fast as possible. So then we have Spark, which I'll put in B tier. Spark is kind of a special skill. I don't really know how much faster it is than EK, but on some maps that's open like Canyon, if you have projectile speed, like 200+%, it clears it really, really fast, and it clears it really, really well, and there won't be that many mobs left over. Spark is not really target capped, especially if you have around like 5 Pierce, and you can even use like Awaken Fork, which is what some people use, in order to get even better clear. But in the end, Spark still loses out to Blade Vortex and Winter Orb because it is still a, what's it called? It's still a skill you have to cast a lot, and that's just something you don't really like to see in a map clear skill if you're just going for fast clears. Spark is probably pretty good in, what's it called, in Delirium and stuff like that, where you have to stand still a lot to cast. But for fast mapping, I would put Spark in B tier. And lastly, we have the poster child of Penance Brand, which I feel like is a new skill for this league, and I put it at A tier, above Blade Vortex but below Winter Orb, because Winter Orb is just the perfect skill, right? There's a reason why Winter Orb has been nerfed so much and why so many streamers love playing it, because once you play Winter Orb, you can't go back. Like, it's just incomparable, right? So we have Penance Brand here. Penance Brand, why I chose it over these other skills is the fact that you don't really need to cast it that much. You can spam Brand Recall a little bit, and when you cast Penance Brand once, you just cast 2 brands on and it jumps all over the place, and it pretty much instantly clears the screen. So it's like you do have to cast a spell, but you don't really cast it that much more than Blade Vortex. And it has better clear because it's range, so you can aim where it goes. And that's actually a pretty big thing. So you can always like aim in front of you. And Penance Brand is just a very good skill with Holy Conquest and the brand notables, especially if you have 3 Remarkables. So this is my ranking: Winter Orb 1, Penance Brand, Blade Vortex, Spark, EK, Arc. This is for map clear. So let's move on to the next section, which is bossing. So for bossing, it's all about the single target, right? So let's start off Arc. So Arc didn't do too well the last round, and I don't think Arc is going to do that well this round. So I'll probably put it at C tier. So Arc, you can see, is a pretty mediocre skill. There's a reason why people don't play it that much. It's kind of a budget option, so it should do well in the next tier list for the budget section. But Arc just doesn't really shine. It's not a Fizz skill, so it doesn't gain that extra hatred conversion or being able to run Herald of Purity. It doesn't have the duration scaling. It doesn't have the projectile scaling. It's just Arc. So C tier is where it belongs. Blade Vortex is actually like B tier. Blade Vortex is good because it's a Fizz skill, so it benefits from Herald of Purity. It gets the extra scaling from Hatred, and it also gets Conk Effect and Unleash, which actually makes its damage pretty good. I don't know, I would almost maybe bump it up to A tier. I feel like it's like that good, but I think B tier is where it should be. Very solid skill for bossing. The problem is it's melee, and you never really want to be melee for bossing, especially for dodging stuff. So I think B tier is where it will be. Now, Winter Orb is, I mean, I would just put it F tier. Like, it's just not good for bossing. Like, in the end, it's a skill that succeeds because of your gear level and how much you've invested rather than skill being good itself. Even if you invest into AoE and multiple projectiles and awaken GMP, it just doesn't feel that great for the aura stacker. And the main reason is because it's a cold skill, right? So you don't benefit from the hatred scaling from Fizz as extra cold. You don't benefit from the Herald of Purity. You don't benefit from the Wrath conversion of your lightning damage. The only lightning damage you have is from Smite. And yeah, missing those few things, the Call of the Brotherhood scaling from lightning to cold conversion. It being at the end of the conversion chain is horrendous. The fact that Smite increases the damage that much, it triples the damage of Winter Orb when you Smite, just shows you how bad the base damage numbers of the spell actually are. And the fact that you have to stand still and channel to do double damage is not something you like in bossing. You don't like to be standing still and doing damage. That's called a death sentence. So, Winter Orb deserves place in F tier. So we have EK. Now, EK is I don't know. I haven't really bossed that much of EK, but I'd probably put it around like here or here. It doesn't have the AoE scaling for Conk Effect. But I mean, I should put it here. It's still better. It's a Fizz skill. It's like around the level of Blade Vortex, right? Because they're both the same things. They're both Fizz skills. You can get Herald of Purity. You can use Taste of Hate or something like that. But it doesn't have the Unleash aspect of it. It doesn't need to be melee all the time, but its damage scaling is okay. It's just like a solid average skill, right? It's not the worst. It's not the best, but not too shabby, I think, because it's a Fizz skill and it has decent base damages. So we'll put it there. Now, Penance Brand, everyone knows, is the best single target skill. It's the only skill that one-shots Maven really fast. And yeah, probably it just has amazing base damages. It's a Fizz and Lightning skill. So like, the reason why Fizz skills are not that great is because Fizz skills, you can't get double multi-jewels. You can only, without it being extremely hard. So Fizz multi-tags are only Fizz, and then, or there's no Fizz multi modifier. It's only global multi and multi for spells. So you don't get multi for lightning and multiply with elemental. So Penance Brand is the god skill because it's multiply with lightning, multiply for spells, and it's also a Fizz skill, so it benefits from Herald of Purity. It's also AoE skill since it benefits from Conk Effect scaling. And lastly, it's also half Fizz, half Lightning, so you don't even need to use Fizz to Lightning Gem to convert it. So, Penance Brand's OP. Now, Spark, probably A tier, pretty good. If you are in a good arena, it's probably A tier. It's probably even like S tier if it's a really good enclosed arena. It's probably like C tier if it's like a bad arena like Cyrus or something. It's probably going to be worse damage than Arc and EK, right? But let's just say like on an average arena, like Maven's arena, Spark could be really good. Some days it could even be better than Penance Brand if you can precast it. So Spark is a pretty big byproduct of the arena and your prod speed and the duration and how long the Spark can linger there and if you can precast. It's hard for me to say exactly where Spark is. It's more of a where it's in the arena, but I will put it here just because its highs are so high. But overall consistency, Winter Orb wins out. So this is a single target list, which I feel like is pretty accurate. But next, let's move to the budget variant, or what is good on the budget. So for the budget variant, we have some contenders here. Arc, S tier. Don't need Malevolence Aura. Good damage overall. don't need that much to shine. Don't need to run. Can use double multi jewels pretty easily. Just a really good skill. That's the skill I started off with. So yeah, Arc wasn't very good in the other tier list, but yeah, it's S tier. Blade Vortex is probably F tier for terms of budget. It's pretty hard to, because you pretty much need to have really high aura effectiveness in order to spend on what's it called, area jewels, because you need to get increased area as a corrupted implicit on a lot of jewels. Otherwise, the skill will just feel really bad, and you pretty much need to stack like vast power medium clusters. And the skill is actually like, I don't know, it's not like the worst scaling skill, but you really need really good gear to make it work. It's definitely a skill succeeding because of the budget rather than because of it being really good itself. So I'm gonna put it in like F tier, maybe C tier. Window Orb is another like C tier-ish skill. Like Window Orb is weird, right? You need Malevolence Aura, so it's already not good. From there, its base damage is horrendous, so you need pretty good gear to make it work. The only saving grace of Window Orb is the fact that double multi-jewels with cold are really cheap. So that's the only reason why I put it not in F tier. But Window Orb is definitely not a skill you should be playing early on. It requires a really high budget level to work out. It also requires you to run Malevolence Aura and probably also have a gem slot to use Hydro Spear. EK is interesting. EK is a pretty good skill, I think. So I'd probably put it S tier, maybe A tier. So EK is a fizz skill, so it has pretty good base damages. I don't know. I probably want to swap Arc and win EK around because both of them don't require Malevolence, right? But Arc's damage is just worse than EK's because it's not a fizz skill. So not really sure. Which one should I put it? Maybe Arc A tier and EK S tier. Because EK you also don't use the intuitive leap, so it's a lot cheaper to get an RMR thing, so you don't need to worry about that. Nah, I think Arc is S tier because you can use double multi jewels on Arc, but you can't use double multi jewels on EK because it's a fifth skill. So that's why the big difference between those two. But you both don't run Malevolence, so it's pretty chill. You don't need to worry about that. EK does have really good base damages, so the damage will be really good, and it's a fizz skill. So I put it there. Now Penance Brand, everyone knows, is S tier purely because it's a fizz skill. It doesn't run Malevolence. It's easy to get double multi jewels for, and yeah, it's just a very very good skill. High base damages. Only downside is the fact that you might have to run Brand Recall, but you don't even need to run Brand Recall, right? It's not a mandatory thing to have. You do need to have one extra cluster, so that's why it's like a little bad for it to be budget, because you need to have Brand Loyalty Holy Conquest no matter what. But I feel like the damage for a Penance Brand is just so high that it probably outweighs almost everything, and it will make your experience a lot smoother, because a lot of people struggle with single target, and single target having to spend like forever on a boss is a really bad feeling, and Penance Brand just solves that issue while having like good enough clear. Spark, I put it in B tier purely because it's not that great of a budget option. Spark's damage is horrendous if you don't have gear, and you need Malevolence. You also need to buy Awakened Spell Echo kind of early-ish on for damage. But the fact that you need Malevolence makes it a lot harder to run the skill, because Spark with no duration feels really bad unless you have a lot of projectile speed. So that's why a lot of people swap to Spark, and they actually don't end up finding it that good, especially on single target. When you're in a bad arena and you actually have bad damage on Spark, the boss will feel like it's like the hardest boss in the world, and it just won't die. But the fact you need Malevolence is a huge downer, but then you can use a lot of double multi jewels with lightning, and it's not too big of a deal. And it's also kind of annoying having to try to find a way to get Pierce if you end up not using Void Walkers. So like Penance Brand, you can just use Doriani's Delusion, and it gives you an extra gem slot, 155 ES. But for Spark, if you don't use Doriani's Delusion, then you are pretty screwed. If you don't use Void Walkers, you won't get the Pierce, right? So that's something to keep in mind. And not having that extra ES and the extra gem slot makes it, I think, an inferior skill for budgeting. So in the end, Penance Brand's number one, then Arc, EK, Spark, Winter Orb, and Blade Vortex. So then I'm gonna go to a conclusion after doing all this tier list stuff, because I hope this help us illuminates like the best skills for like budget, map clear, and bossing. So you can tailor make to what you think is good. So overall, I hope that tier list was pretty helpful for people deciding what skill to use. I know it seems like I am really high on Penance Brand because I gave it at 2 S tier ranks, but Penance Brand is really just that good. There's a reason when you look at PoE Ninja, right? And you go to Ascendance and then you type in Nebulis for all the people who play Aura Stacker. That 19% is Penance Brand. Like most of the people who play Spark, they probably quit the game before I found out about Penance Brand, right? So you can assume that most people are not playing the game anymore who are on Spark. And the fact that this many people swapped over to playing Penance Brand should be an indicator that, yeah, they tried to build out. They knew it was good because most of these people probably played Spark before. I played Spark before. And it is just objectively better in almost every scenario, whether it's budget, whether it's boss killing or map clear. Like these people would not have swapped if it felt really bad compared to Spark, right? So, but you can also see that it's actually not the best map clear skill Winter Orb is, but Winter Orb is just so awful on, it's just so bad on, what's it called? On bossing that it's actually kind of not redeemable. But maybe I'll review one of these Winter Orb profiles for next time because it's actually pretty fun reviewing people's gear to see what they're doing. That's actually pretty interesting with Trinity, I'm assuming. Yeah, but we can look at some more people's builds. It's kind of fun doing it. Because looking at people's builds for PoE Ninja, maybe if you want me to look at your build for the next video, leave it in the comments below. Maybe like join the Discord and leave me your path of building. I can also try to help you improve it. Because like looking at PoE Ninja helps you out, and it also gives me ideas on how to make the Aura Stacker better, right? Because what I just saw here, potentially for the next video, is Hungry Loop with Hydro Spear. That could be something pretty interesting, right? And then I don't know why he's not using Trinity, but I guess you probably can't use Trinity then. But we'll see how it goes. But hopefully the tier list was a pretty big eye-opener. I know for me, when making it, I did see how high Penance Brand was. I did see where Winter Orb was and Blade Vortex were. And yeah, but hopefully the budget, you should pay attention to the budget option because if you play budget for Blade Vortex or Winter Orb, it's not going to go well. So in the coming days, I'll still be doing some 5-ways, getting my character to 100. And if you want to check out my stream, I'll be doing some 5-way hosting. But if you enjoy the content, be sure to like and subscribe. I stream every day. I'll be doing some TBC soon content maybe in the next couple days as it's coming out on June 1st. But thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time, and I hope you find more mirrors and exalts than I do.